which is very important because Sri Aurobindo really goes into detail on the subconscious, which he calls a concealed and unexpressed, inarticulate consciousness,
Right.
which works beyond all our conscious physical activities. That's amazing. It's working behind them, and it's just the opposite of the superconscious. So, but what he does say here is interesting to me. Is below the body consciousness. And things come up into the physical, vital, and mind nature from there, from the subconscious. It's not the inconscious. Okay, so we have to get used to those things. Do you want to read?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Life in him learned its huge subconscious
Rear. Rear means back.
Rear.
Yeah.
Life.
Someone's in the rear, they're behind us.
Rear.
Yeah, so the subconscious is learning about this huge, he's learning about this huge subconscious rear that's behind him. And more is going to happen now. He's going to tell us as we go along.
The little fronts unlocked to the unseen vasts. Her gulfs stood nude, her far transcendences flamed in transparencies of crowded light.
So the little fronts of Ashwapati have now unlocked to all these vasts that were previously unseen. Even her gulfs, this vast gulfs, stood bare, naked.
Yeah.
Her far transcendences, flamed in transparencies of crowded light. Look at the words transcendences and then transparencies, and in two lines. So the gulf, of course, is the wide chasms, the abysses, and the transcendences is, it's not the deity because that would have to be a capital T. So in this case, the transcendences are lying beyond the ordinary range of perception. And those transcendences flamed in transparencies of crowded light. So now what is he going to find here?
A giant order was discovered here, of which the tassel and extended fringe are the scant stuff of our material lives.
Oh, that's a powerful statement. Whoa. So this giant order that he discovers, Sri Aurobindo tells us it's just like a tassel. You know what a tassel is?
Yeah.
Hanging from a garment or something. And we know what a fringe is. It's a decorative border. And those two things are just the scant, the limited, barely sufficient stuff of our material lives.
Yeah.
That we feel so, what we feel about these material lives, that they're everything.
Yes.
There's sorrow, there's beauty, there's love, there's hate, there's anger. There are all these things, and they mean nothing. And this is what Sri Aurobindo really wants us to understand, is that when we can free ourselves from these gunas of tamas, rajasic, and sattvic, and view from there our lives, we will see that they're just pretty scant stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes lately, I think I'm struggling a little with enjoying material activities too much. Some of them, like I love surfing. Sometimes I want to skip everything to go to the ocean to surf. And it's just on a material level. Or I told you, like, I want to build a building. So my mind is like occupied with designing and thinking how it should look, how the room should look, what the furniture should be like. and it's all engrossing. And I know that I should not be so involved in it, rather step back, because it's not everything. But I get so excited and I just.
Sure. Prioritizing is important
Mhm.
in our life. And um, we can make it much richer by beauty, by music, by poetry, by literature,
Yeah,
sculpture, and architecture.
yeah.
So the things that you're doing are good. I guess you know Aaron and Dylan,
No,
my grandsons.
no.
Oh, they're incredible surfers.
Okay,
And they go all over the world to surf, especially Australia.
okay.
One
What's
is
your
really
full name
Aaron,
uh,
Aaron,
and the
and,
family name?
and Dylan, Shalley's children.
What is the second name, family name?
Imhoff.
Yeah, I think I met Dylan once in the surf school, and I
Ah,
think I saw Aaron surf once, and I was so impressed. I haven't seen someone on our beach surf so well. I didn't know they were your grandchildren. Okay.
okay, let's carry on now.
Yeah, yeah.
This overt universe.
This overt universe whose figures hide the secrets merged in superconscient light wrote clear the letters of its glowing code, a map of subtle signs, surpassing thought, was hung upon a wall of inmost mind.
Very, very interesting lines here. First of all, we have an overt universe, and you can see the paradoxical thing here. He says it's an overt universe, but its figures hide.
Mm.
So it's open and observable, not hidden, but its figures hide. But what are they hiding? They're hiding the secrets merged in superconscious light. So we had before the subconscious, now we're seeing the superconscious, the third power or possibility of the infinite consciousness.
Mm.
So what happened here? Well, it wrote the letters clear, wrote these letters very clear of its glowing code. And that code is a map of subtle signs that surpass thought. So we cannot see those or understand those codes unless we can get above the mind.
Mm.
But it is hung upon a wall of inmost mind. So uh, we have three things that Ranga tells us all about. Is we have the higher consciousness coming down through the skull,
Mm.
and we have the through the psychic being the opening of the heart.
Yeah.
But there's also an inner consciousness, and he speaks of that inner consciousness of an inmost mind and an inmost vital.
Yeah, yeah. Inner mind, inner vital,
Right,
and
right,
yeah.
right. Good. So there we are now, and we're going to see what it does.
Illumining the world's concrete images into significant symbols by its gloss, it offered to the intuitive exegete its reflex of the eternal mystery.
Ah, yes. So here we have some things to go through. So the first one is, well, let me go first here. Gloss. Gloss here is a superficial shine or luster. It
Mm.
is it's deceptive in its appearance actually. So it is illumining these concrete images of the world into significant symbols by its gloss. And it offered to the intuitive exegete. The intuitive is someone who has a spiritual vision,
Mm.
perception, and the term exegete really is a person who interprets texts, especially scripture.
Text. Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on.
Ascending and descending twixt life's poles, the serried kingdoms of the graded law plunged from the everlasting into time, then glad of a glory of multitudinous mind, and rich with life's adventure and delight, and packed with the beauty of matter's shapes and hues, climbed back from time into undying self, up a golden ladder, carrying the soul, tying with diamond threads the spirit's extremes.
Whoa. Okay, a lot to go through. So let's go first with I've got 2 pages here, right? So, okay. We did the reflex of eternal mystery, I guess. Mystery, of course, is spiritual truth. And there are rites and laws and practices of this spiritual truth. And so it's a reflex of this eternal mystery. He capitalizes the end. Now, ascending and descending twixt life's poles, the serried kingdoms of the graded law. Now, we had the word previously, serried, S-E-R-R-I-E-D, but that is not this word.
This is like a series of kingdoms.
Yes, it's arranged in a sequence,
right,
or grades or ranks of these things. And it's a graded law. And we've gone through law, I think, many times, so we won't go through those now. So it plunged from the everlasting into time. Now, the everlasting here is the divine, because it's a capital E.
Yeah.
And time, of course, here is the vastness, not the mortal time, but the infinite time.
Right.
So it plunged from this everlasting into time. And what did it do there? Well, we see then glad of a glory of multitudinous mind. Multitudinous is existing in great numbers. Very, very numerous. Populous, we could say, crowded. These words all synonyms. And rich with life's adventure and delight. Now I have to get into the next page, right? I guess it's 89.
Yes.
Yeah, let me see. I think I have it right here. Yeah. And packed with the beauty of matter's shapes and hues. This is so lovely. Climbed back from time into undying self. See, he's experiencing all of these things in his own body. And, in the record of yoga, he tells of many of these things. I have to read the whole thing, which I haven't done as yet. So, next we see up a golden ladder carrying the soul and tying with diamond threads the spirit's extremes. How beautiful. So it is taking things up, the soul up a golden ladder, and it's tying the spirit's extremes. So from the highest to the lowest with diamond threads. Okay, we'll carry on.
In this drop from consciousness to consciousness, each leaned on the occult inconscience power, the fountain of its needed ignorance, Archmason of the limits by which it lives.
So it's very interesting, I think, that we see what Sri Aurobindo is telling us here, that in this drop, now you see it's a drop
Mm,
from consciousness to a weaker consciousness, a lower consciousness.
mm,
And therefore, each leaned on the occult inconscience power. And the occult is,
hidden.
the initiate. Yeah, that's no problem at all. But the inconscient, he says in his letter on Savitri, I like this so much. The inconscient and the ignorance may be mere empty abstractions and can be dismissed as relevant jargon if one has not come in collision with them
Mm,
or plunged into their dark and bottomless reality. But to me, they are realities, concrete powers whose resistance is present everywhere and at all times in its tremendous and boundless mass. Now, this he hasn't spoken of in the synthesis or Life Divine, but in his letters. And he is speaking of this darkness that's something of inertia, disharmony, or disintegration. And it's the basis of this material, this inconscient ocean of the Rig Veda, for example. And sometimes it's called non being asat. So these forces, which we see very much in our present day, are leaning on this power, this occult power of the inconscient. And what are they doing there? That's the question. He doesn't tell us yet. He says it's the fountain of the needed ignorance of these forces. And what else?
Archmason.
It's an archmason, a master builder. Archmason is a master builder of the limits by which it lives.
Mm. This, like the darkness that's there in the inconscience, yes, we do feel them as forces, but do some people on the path experience it as very real dark worlds?
Yes.
And does everyone have to go through that phase, or only some people go through it?
Mother says that those who travel on the path of light will have to go through it, but it's very minor for them. It's those who are deeply involved in the material consciousness that have to face the fate of these beings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not everybody has to experience it in the intensity.
Not in the same way, not in the darkest way. True. True. So, and he speaks a lot about that in Savitri and other places also. We must be aware of the divine guidance that is lifting us and holding us, even in our ignorance, even in our rejection of it. It's still there because it's in us. How can he be anywhere else but in us, in each of us? So he is the archmason of the limits by which it lives, or rather, these forces. Now, first we had this going down in consciousness. Where was that line now? Let me get that line.
Are you talking about
in this drop from consciousness to consciousness. And now he's going to tell us in this soar from consciousness to consciousness.
Yeah.
So begin with that, please.
In the soar from consciousness to consciousness, each lifted tops to that from which it came, origin of all that it had ever been, and home of all that it could still become.
So it is a soar from consciousness to consciousness, and Mother speaks about that a lot also. But each lifted their highest element to that. That is the divine, capital D. Sometimes he will even use the word that to symbolize the divine from which it came. And it is the origin of all that it had ever been, and it is the home of all that it could still become. Now we have the next line, very interesting.
An organ scale of the Eternal's acts, mounting to their climax in an endless calm, basis of the many-visaged wonderful, predestined stadia of the evolving way, measures of the stature of the growing soul. They interpreted existence to itself, and, mediating twixt the heights and deeps, united the veiled, married opposites, and linked creation to the ineffable.
Quite a bit here. Yeah. First of all, we have this line, an organ scale of the Eternal's acts. Now, if you could listen to an organ piece, you can probably get it right on YouTube. It's Vidor, W-I-D-O-R, Vidor's Toccata, T-O-C-C-A-T-A.
Toccata.
Yeah, that is the organ scale of and vastness of an experience you'll never have again like that. It's extraordinary.
I'm looking to it.
So it's an organ scale of the Eternal's acts. Now we know what an organ is.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. There's a keyboard and there's this air flows into the pipes. And it's an immense sound. I mean, I can remember singing in these great cathedrals. When the organ starts, just the whole cathedral is filled with sound.
Yeah.
So mounting to their climax, to their summit, in an endless calm. Now, how do you have a climax that happens in an endless calm? Here it's paradoxical again. You cannot understand it fully with the mind. Paces of the many-visaged wonderful. And here wonderful is the divine again, the personification of the deity. Sri Aurobindo employs the word as a personification of the deity. He himself does it. So then we have this predestined stadia of the evolving way. Now, it's not a stadium. There's a difference here. Predestined, of course, is known beforehand, foreordained or predetermined. But stadia here is a point in a journey. So the evolving way has a point that's predestined, as we all do. I mean, we can accept our fate and we can reject it also. And Sri Aurobindo has this wonderful line that if we reject it and the divine still wants us to go through it, he puts a check in our credit page. So these are the measures of the stature of the growing soul. And they interpreted existence to itself and mediating twixt the heights and deeps. Now, twixt here is a very old English word.
Between.
It means between, yes. See, but between would have two beats. And twixt has one beat, so he preserves the iambic pentameter. And it united these veiled married opposites and linked creation to the ineffable. And here again, capital I for ineffable, the divine.
Divine.
Ineffable. Yeah. So I think probably we should end there for today.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit to read.
Yeah. Life in him learned its huge subconscient rear. The little fronts unlocked to the unseen vasts. Her gulfs stood nude, her far transcendences flamed in transparencies of crowded light. A giant order was discovered here, of which the tassel and extended fringe are the scant stuff of our material lives. This overt universe, whose figures hide the secrets merged in superconscient light, wrote clear the letters of its glowing code. A map of subtle signs surpassing thought was hung upon a wall of inmost mind. Illumining the world's concrete images into significant symbols by its gloss, it offered to the intuitive exegete reflex of the eternal mystery. Ascending and descending twixt life's poles, the seaweed kingdoms of the graded law, plunged from the everlasting into time, then glad of a glory of multitudinous mind, and rich with life's adventure and delight, and packed with the beauty of matter's shapes and hues, climbed back from time into undying self, up a golden ladder, carrying the soul, tying with diamond threads the spirit's extremes. In this drop from consciousness to consciousness,
try to read a little, make me feel it a little bit more. I know it's a difficult passage, but we just don't want to read words.
Yeah.
See what you can do. In this drop from consciousness to consciousness.
In this drop from consciousness to consciousness, each leaned on the occult inconscience power, the fountain of its needed ignorance, archmason of the limits by which it lives. In this soar from consciousness to consciousness, each lifted tops to that from which it came, origin of all that it had ever been, and home of all that it could still become. An organ scale of the Eternal's acts, mounting to their climax in an endless calm, faces of the many visaged wonder.
Visaged.
Faces of the many visaged wonderful, predestined stadia of the evolving way, measures of the stature of the growing soul. They interpreted existence to itself and, mediating twixt the heights and deeps, united the veiled married opposites and linked creation to the ineffable.
Good. Quite good, actually. So we still have some places to go in this yoga of the king, yoga of the spirit's freedom and greatness. And then we'll get into book 2.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting book. Timmy would never let me read it. She would say, no, you go to book 3. Because there's so much that Sri Aurobindo went through personally in pain and torture, seeing, having to take the light into this darkness. And it's already there, and that's what we have to hold on to. That it's already there, and the supermental is here, waiting for us.
Thank you so much.